Hey everybody, Sari here, and welcome back to another week of defense matches. This was a fun week just because I was experimenting with Ceros, and I ended up arriving at this as my layout for the most part. I like it a lot because I'm using Veronica as the 7th unit, which she might not be active at the start of the turn, but her threat range is still used to activate the map. So even if she's not active, per se, she still is serving a purpose before she actually gets to use an attack or action. You've got Felix with his save skill. I'm still kind of waiting to see how well this turns out for him. I think it's working out alright so far. I didn't see a single duo Lin. Eliwood's basically the same as usual. Dorothy is fun. I really like her weapon as just a way to add 4 different chills to your team without using actual skills for it. And as a harmonic hero, she enables Dio's hindrance, which is very useful. Ceres herself in her bonus week is very spooky. I did give her Time's Pulse and Hardyberry. Time's Pulse came from Leaf. I kind of like Leaf, but I can't justify merging him because he's not that good on a defense team. At least as far as I've seen. And Ceres makes pretty good use of this with Iceberg. Between that and Hardyberry, she'll almost always get to use an Iceberg on anything that survives her first attack and counters. So it gives her a lot of actual damage threat, which is good to have in the Mythic. Mirabilis still has ground orders. I have ground orders on Dorothea still too. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it, but I think it's helpful just for stuff past the first turn. Veronica, I really want to invest more into Veronica, but I haven't been able to justify it even in the 3 years she's been available. Has it been 3 years? I think it's been close. I might, especially now that we can get her out of the special focus. Hopefully I can actually find some more merges for her. She's still pretty low on the merges. And the last one is a very new addition to my defense team with Edelgard, who is not really thoroughly invested yet, but I did get a Gustav and fed her close defense and the save skill. So basically, what this does is it helps keep Felix and Veronica safe from any marauding Reagans. And the reason I was actually kind of comfortable with this going into the week is I'm actually just going to demonstrate here. Is that even in Reagan's bonus week, and to be fair, Miss Reagan is not plus attack and she's not plus 10 or anything like that, but it is still her bonus week. And then this is the result. So I felt kind of comfortable going into this week with Edelgard being able to tank Reagan and just sort of keep her off of the other members of the front line. So, with that said, I went into the week fully prepared to adjust things as things went on, and I switched to this after the very first match. Having the Bolt Tower this far forward in the previous setup was something I was a bit not sure about, and the very first match did end up taking advantage of it, so decided, no, we're not going to make it easy to use or test. And this layout ended up doing very well, actually, over the course of the week. I didn't really change anything skill-wise, although I did give Ceres Pivot. just to help her move further towards the front line after the map starts. And I also gave Mirabilis her default sabotage back, which I didn't want her getting baited out with Wings of Mercy, and I think the sabotage, especially with how much space Veronica threatens, it has a really good chance of actually working on whoever ends up being the first target for someone like Eliwood or Felix or Edelgard. So I figured it works, and it makes Mirabilis a little harder to bait. I don't want to give her aerobatics, because otherwise she would just end up dancing Veronica immediately, and that's actually something I don't want, because if Mirabilis jumps forward to dance Veronica, it makes her a lot easier to take out, and it also denies Felix the ground orders, so. Just little things. I switched things a little bit more after one of the later matches, and really, this was the only change, was giving Edelgard pivot, because swap actually backfired. It was a really clever bit of AI manipulation from them. I'm assuming that they manipulated the AI properly to get it done. I took Ceres's pivot away. I'm probably going to give it back. But again, I like making small changes once I've found a layout that seems to work. Because making really big changes, I mean, it can pay off, obviously, but if you do, then you kind of start from scratch with all of the feedback that the defenses give you. And I think this layout's actually done pretty well overall, so I'll probably stick with it, although I don't know if I'm going to keep the units as is, but we'll see. Like I said, overall the defense did really well this week, actually. There was one clean loss, but other than that, things went, again, really well, and we even got a fun little surprise visit from Phoenix Master 1. So let's get started with this first one. This was an interesting way to start the week. It was fun seeing another bonus core in. And they brought a legendary Edelgard along too. Not terribly invested, but I think they just gave her this to make sure that she can actually move extra spaces at the start of the turn no matter what. That's understandable. It does mean that she's... Well, actually, they didn't even give her Gale Force, so that's just a basic Kid Edelgard. Peonies, well, even if they can't use this hindrance, her weapon is still doing a lot of work just with how much attack you can support her allies with. Altina's pretty standard, and Reagan... Bonus week Reagan is kind of horrifying. So they decided, I'm pretty sure they knew that this was going to start right away, and they decided to bait this out with Corrin. Sadly, Eliwood is tracking Peony here, so he doesn't end up getting just to knock Edelgard out. A little unfortunate, but and Corrin can actually one-shot him in her bonus week pretty easily, as long as she has her special active. Yeah. And sadly, the movement order didn't work out very well for us. Felix ends up attacking Edelgard. He can't quite finish her off, so it leaves us really stranded for this turn, and then they get to use the trap, which makes everybody else much easier to finish off. This Reagan actually did manage to one-shot Edelgard, and I think it's just because of the Geopeony. The extra 10 attack is a lot more than I was able to support her when I sort of did my light, okay, can we tank a Reagan test? So... This combat seems a little fitting. And then the trap actually stops them from removing Dorothea, which means we actually end up getting a knockout here. And as long as I get one, I think I'm pretty okay with the result. I'd obviously rather get 2 or more, but getting one, especially when we're still very much testing this out, that's pretty good. And from here they're just stalling so they can pick up the pots. It's not like Mirabilis is much of a threat on her own. And then they can finish her off. It wasn't really a clean win, but it's not like they lost too much lift from it, because they had the bonus unit. So, really only 10 left lost for them. Sadly, they did not provide a very fun rematch, but... eh. So, this was a fun one, just because it was a great highlight of how you can actually beat Felix with save skill. I think this is the first Nino I've seen in months, actually. Honestly, she's still really, really solid at high investment. I don't know if it's better to just use a stat refine for her weapon, though. As nice as the wave skill is, I think it's better for her to get her buffs from other sources, for the most part, and just focus on boosting her own combat ability. Plumeria, got their Reagan. And Silk is fun because she actually guaranteed is going to buff Reagan here for speed, defense, and attack. I think usually they actually hit Nino with it on this team, so I'm not sure if they realized it would hit Reagan instead for her bonus week. Raphael's fun, especially with this infantry pulse setup. It's something I've actually really thought about for supporting Corin with when she's in season, but sadly my Raphael does not have quite enough health to manage it. So maybe someday if I get enough merges for him, or a plus hit points version. So they take a turn to set up out of range. And then they really commit. They just go in with this. Nino can absolutely deal with Felix. It's not something he can really do much about when she's got buffs going. And she's also fast enough to double him, which is unfortunate, but... On the other hand, it does cost them 3 actions, actually, just to get that knockout. The second dance means that she can go in and finish Edelgard off too. It was actually very close. If I'd had one more Dragon Flower for her. And without her bodyguards, Veronica just sort of crumbles. But at this point, they can't extract from this. They're stuck. They already used Kanto, so... And Eliwood's like, well, I might not be able to double you, but I'm still getting my Gale Force. Raphael can't quite survive Eliwood here. He doesn't go after Nino because of advantage.
As petals fall.
And Mirabilis is jumping in like, hey, I can fight.
Not good enough.
I'm actually surprised she did that much, honestly. And yeah, at this point, Nina is panicked, so her entire weapon gets disabled. And Dorothea she doesn't care. She actually, especially because this is Dorothea's bonus week too, she can actually tank Nino really easily. Especially because Swift Impact means that Nino doesn't even get a follow-up. They pull back, heal Nino, and I guess hope that she'll be able to deal with Dorothea, but again, Swift Impact and Color Advantage do a lot. And there's no miracle to save Nino anymore.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
And Alewa just gets to go in and pick up another couple of knockouts thanks to Gale Force. And at that point the fight's really over, they're not putting anything else down.
Still more love to give.
I think they do use Altina here, yeah. I think this is just a revenge knockout, because Altina is never going to actually survive Ceros here. This one was a fun one, just seeing an Armor Smasher Mirabilis. I was kind of curious, honestly. I wish I could have seen how that defense works, but... This one brought the Hector squad. We've got Halloween Hector with mostly base kit. He's honestly very solid, just as a combat unit, even if he can't use his duo skill. And, well, we all know how good Brave Hector is with this refine. They set this one up for Gale Forcing, which is actually really interesting. I think they might be better off if they also had Gale Force on this Hector. And probably Bold Fighter too. But I think this Gale Force is actually a really cool idea just because it lets him potentially take out a couple of things that he couldn't handle in his own phase before they can actually threaten him. We've got Altina, Reagan. This was, yeah. Oh. I really hope that... Oh, it's going to be a while before we see refines for Mythics. But I think Naga kind of desperately needs one. Her weapon was kind of... It's always been hard to work with, and at this point, a weapon that's basically just a ball of stats with a really, really restrictive condition just doesn't cut it. It's not bad, I mean, you can get +9 to stats with it, but it's really not good. So here, I think they didn't spot ground orders on Felix, and they were just trying to bait Edelgard with Hector and Felix with the other Hector. But because of ground orders, Felix was like, well, I'm just gonna go after this Hector instead. And everything kind of falls apart from there.
Do I look merry?
Elena,
Hollywood can't really take a good fight here, but Panic and dragging him back means he gets Gale Force as well. And then picks up another one on Plumeria. And then, well, Hector's not doing much against Edelgard. He's solid, but that's a bit too much for him to deal with. And then Veronica actually just barely gets this knockout. And dance, and she can go get Altina as well.
No. But how?
Stuff like this is why I'm actually seriously considering looking for something to give Veronica, like attack speed push. She'd use it really well, and if I'm going to be using her on my defense in the long term, then it would really pay off. This one was fun to see just because, well, everyone knows PM1, so it was fun to see him show up in the defenses. And he brought a Layla and Soth combination. Soth with his broadleaf and fully built. Honestly, Soth has held up really well in the long term as he's a solid infantry dagger. I'm interested to see what his refine will be. We already got Micaiah's, so he shouldn't be too far behind. I mean, in theory. Who knows? Unless they increase the rate of refines, they're going to take a while to get through everybody. But between Disarm Trap and her dagger, Layla's really, really useful. And he actually has his Bolt Tower in the perfect spot to mess with this defense, because it's going to hit everything. Specifically, though, it's going to hit Felix. And by hitting Felix, it drops him into a low enough health range that Layla can actually finish him off. Gale Force Reagan. Also, full set of tactics. Tactics they're so useful, honestly. They always have been. And I think it's actually kind of impressive that they haven't really been power crept much. +6 to stats has been a sort of benchmark for a very long time. So he waits a turn so that they can pull with the Bolt Tower. And I think he was just scoping out how Reagan would do against Edelgard. And with the Bolt Tower damage, he actually refreshes Layla here. Because otherwise the debuffs from Dorothea I think they would actually have stopped her from getting that knockout. Then Soth gets swapped in and he can actually, again, barely finish Edelgard off. And then he breaks the Panic Manor. I don't know, honestly. I feel like he might have been better off hitting Veronica, because otherwise you just let Veronica run all over the map like this, and that's a recipe for disaster. But at the same time, if you don't break that Panic Manor, Soth is going to get panicked, and Eliwood would just eat him alive. So, I think he was hoping that Veronica was going to go after Reagan instead, but it didn't quite work out that way. Unfortunately, Dorothea didn't get to dance. She got baited forward, and now Gale Force Reagan gets to do her thing. Can finish off Dorothea without any problems, which actually resets Kanto. And now she can go after Eliwood and back out. Can pick up Mirabilis without any problems as well. Now, the only problem here, and I'm pausing it here because he actually surrendered. I'm not sure if he meant to do this or take out Veronica. Might not have been able to, actually. Yeah, that's right, because she needs to be in 2 spaces of Soth, otherwise she gets counterattacked, and I think Veronica actually would finish her off here. But even beyond that, Saros would actually kill Soth here. Party Bearing and just her raw attack actually lets her one-shot Soth, which triggers Miracle, and Soth's counterattack isn't actually going to be able to knock her out because of the 40% damage reduction. So she finishes him off with the next hit. And I think that's why he conceded here. Honestly, at this point, I was getting a little surprised by how well the defense was doing. In a good way, obviously. It's good to see it doing well, but I didn't expect it to do this well. Especially when you're running into stuff like this. This is... wow. That Larcy is just... she's really strong, honestly. I don't think she's as good as Marita, because Snow Follow-Up is, a lot of the time, much stronger to have than just a cancel your opponent's buffs. But, hey, let's just stack the damage reduction. And it's fun to see another Hinoka too, as support. She's really good, honestly. This weapon refine is just, yeah, it's really, really strong. Maria. Just the basics for the rest of it. They just started up immediately. I think they were hoping that Elliot was going to move on to the defense tile here. But he's tracking Plumeria, so he goes after Regan instead, which lets him Gale Force and then he picks up a pretty easy knockout on Plumeria. Part of the problem with this too is that even if he'd gone after Larcy instead, Larcy wouldn't be able to knock him out because of the special fighter on initiation and the fact that she doesn't have no follow-up. Veronica can't do too much there, but it's fine. It's a little unfortunate that she was out of range of Edelgard at this point, but hey. They keep going. Naga can finish off LA without too much of a problem. And then they have Larcy take out Veronica, which is understandable. But at this point, they're not in a good spot because Felix is getting ground orders back, and Reds are not going to have a good time against Felix.
This is your name on it.
She does survive him, but thanks to his bow, she can't actually counterattack with her Regnal Astra. So it really just makes her a very easy knockout to pick up after the dance. And then Edelgard moves up and gives him another warp pad to go and get Regan. And at this point, they might have been able to use Hinoka to pick up a knockout or two, but they weren't going to be able to finish this map. This one was interesting. They actually took a really similar approach to one of the matches from 2 weeks ago. Peony support, Regan, a non-resplendent Ike. Next streak is going to be fun with the offense matches. I'm looking forward to taking Bike for a tour. And the classic combo of Ike Lucina. Along with a Tamari Tethys. I don't know why they're using a Fortress skill instead of Phantom Res, honestly. But maybe it helps her tank some mages for them. We did get to snipe their bolt tower, which is nice. And sadly, Pulse Smoke stops Hollywood from getting a Gale Force. But Ike can't quite survive the Veronica afterwards. And while they can pick up Elliowood here, it's... I think they have a moment of, oh wait, Elliowood's not necessarily the biggest problem anymore. Yeah, I think they ran into the, wait a minute, I don't we don't have anything that can actually deal with Edelgard, and she's covering this entire front line.
Such power.
And then they just surrender. So this was another fun one. I think I might be overestimating how quickly people are picking up the new stuff, because the first time I saw this and saw Kranya, I immediately expected her to have Fatal Smoke. But she's just running with the usual, or my usual, Kranya build with Spiral and Double Savage and Glimmer. It's really, really effective. Honestly, she carried my Astra seasons for a long time with this build. And now that we have Reagan, that's an extra 3 attack for free that she gets, which is really, really useful for her. And Plumeria is an Astra season dancer. Yeah. No, I think she's still in a really good spot, actually, Kranya is. Even with people, designing defenses with her in mind, it's still really easy for her to actually do what she's supposed to do. And just sweep people. Now, I'm not really sure how they were planning to go about this one, but I mean, obviously they're trying to sweep Kranya, but I think they got caught off guard by just the attack range of Veronica. And I mean, once Hollywood gets danced, that's gonna be bad times. I'm sorry, Liam. They did get to isolate one of our dancers, so it's not like we could follow up much, but just losing Leanne there like that was enough. Well, sweeps like this are honestly really rare, especially in Astra seasons, so seeing one show up like this is fun, especially when I'm still just trying to experiment with everything. So this one, it brought an out-of-season Dimitri, which, I don't know, he's really, really strong, but you're losing a lot when it's not a water season. He's missing out on both of these buffs, and yeah. And I think they really like Mercy, because, wow, that is at least 2 Sephrons that they fed her. Just, oof. And Flame's very solid as backup, too. I'm not a fan of stacking damage reduction effects. It's kind of free with Flame, but even then you're sacrificing a potential different support unit. Nope. I think they were trying to bait Veronica forward, but Elliot gets in there first. He doesn't get Gale Force here because of the weapon that Mercy got from Winter Saffron. The guard effect is actually very, very nice to have as a support. So we don't get any extra knockouts there, but using that special to knock out Hollywood, he's already done his job. And sadly, again, Veronica is not covered by Edelgard here, so Dimitri can pick her up pretty easily. And thanks to Swap, actually, Dorothea ends up being the only one who can get range of Dimitri right away, so that's an easy knockout. Unfortunately for them at this point, the rest of the defense is staying very close together, and even though Dimitri is extremely solid, he can't handle Edelgard. Not like this.
It's our chance to prevail. We will not lose.
That Mystic Boost Seal's actually doing quite a lot of work for her this match.
Mother, soon.
I actually gave it to her just to shut down the adaptive damage from Reagan. Although I've been kind of second guessing myself over that because her defenses are actually very evenly split, and if she's running a low speed defense, the defenses are even already anyway. Yeah, at this point, they don't really have a good way to deal with Ceros, and Edelgard's still been unanswered over here.
We will not lose. This is my punishment.
And down goes Dimitri.
This is it for you.
Yeah, that's not a fight she's going to win.
Not good enough.
Ceres is protecting Edelgard. We're not mortal enemies, we swear. And this, oof.
I won't back down.
This match was just an Edelgard refusing to die setup. It was fun to see. So this was unfortunate to see, but I was expecting more of this, if I'm honest, over the course of the week. So only seeing one clean loss through the entire week, I'm pretty okay with that. They also brought a really invested team to this. It's a plus 10 Edelgard, it's a plus 10 Duo Micaiah, plus 10 Naga, even if she's not doing too much other than helping the score. Plumeria, Reagan, and Claude. And Claude's missing a seal, which is a little odd, honestly, considering the rest of the team, but this was another match where this bolt tower in the 5th lane really ended up doing some work. Makes me wonder if I should switch the catapult over to that lane, but right now it's guarding Edelgard, which is really important too. And they actually have a very clever bit here where I'm still kind of annoyed that Elliot didn't go for the Gale Force, but it's because he doesn't take damage back from Claude. So he goes for the more advantageous combat, and then when Claude gets lunged forward, Edelgard immediately swaps Veronica, which means that Veronica doesn't get danced forward to finish Claude off. And from there they can pick up the pieces. Bolt Tower does a lot of work weakening everybody, so Reagan can actually finish off Edelgard. And Felix here. Then Micaiah can just one-shot Eliud without any problems. Claude pulls her back, and at this point they've basically got the fight down. Veronica gets baited over, and she's not in range of any dancers, so there's no real threat there. And Dorothea's not getting anything done against Claude.
Take your final bow.
And sadly, because Ceres actually has an assist, she doesn't move first, and doesn't get danced. And from here, Edelgard can sweep things up pretty easily. Especially with that duo skill. And now they can just use Claude to bait Mirabilis out while they pick up the pots and clean things up. It went really well for them, but I think I actually fixed this problem with that last edit of the week, so I'm not too worried. And again, it's good to see how people break it, especially when I'm just still experimenting, because it helps improve. Plus, this was a really fun rematch, so can't complain. Always kind of odd to see these this late in the week, but eh. I don't mind seeing it when I don't lose lift, and rematches are always fun. And this time they actually did have an escape ladder, so I'm not just judging them for being on their last chance. Another Gale Force Reagan. This is an interesting one for Leon. I don't know how much I like Distant Defense over a Stance skill. I think the Guard is actually a lot more useful for him. I think Averse is still a really good support, too. Especially since I'm starting to see a lot more visible buffs on defenses. Just having that access to panic is very, very nice. And this was interesting because I actually didn't... I thought I'd tested this and seen that the tactic room wouldn't actually prevent Veronica from activating the map on the first turn. But apparently it does. I'm not sure if that changed from when I tested it or not, but it's good to keep in mind. Yeah. And, I mean, Makai is gonna one-shot Felix, sadly. And Edelgard too. Armor effective damage is very strong.
Be safe.
The only problem, of course, is that at this point, by taking out both of them, they're stranded really far forward and they can't pull people back. Because, I mean, they've kind of committed at this point to this, and I don't know, I guess they're hoping Eliwood's not going to get much done. There are two dancers here. Goes after a Versa and actually does get the Gale Force, barely. And Leon. It's the highest health targets, especially since neither of them can counterattack. I think if he'd gone after Micaiah, we might have been able to win this. But again, if we get 2 knockouts, pretty happy with it. Missing bolt towers is just oof. I don't like that there are 3 lanes now that people are using. I'm not sure how common that 5th lane bolt tower is, but it really does a number on me with the setup.
I'm right here.
Cirrus actually nearly survived this. It's only after this attack that Micaiah actually has enough damage to knock her out.
Be safe.
And at this point, Dorothy is not a major threat on her own, so it's easy enough for them to pick pots up and finish the match.
Yeah.
And while it's a little unfortunate to end the season on a match like this, some people just don't want to bother. It is a bit of a shame, honestly. I really like seeing how people tackle the defense, especially when I'm trying to improve it. But I think overall it did pretty well this week. So, hope you've enjoyed the video, and good luck with your own matches, and I'll see you next time.